Okay, I'm going to bring up the script. Whenever you're ready, Genia.
Okay, I am calling this Back Bay Architectural Commission Violations Committee public meeting to order at 4:30 p.m. on August 13th, 2025. You can participate in this hearing by going to our Zoom meeting link in our agenda posted online at https://www.boston.gov/public-notices/163-93651 or by calling 301-715-8592 and entering ID number 963-2732-5259. You can also submit written comments or questions to backbayac@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this hearing online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Back Bay Architectural Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the applications via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use a platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside the Commission's purview. So I think our violation is for 270 Clarendon Street at rear elevation and unapproved removal of tree and construction of a wood platform, which is continued from our June 11th, 2025 hearing. Is anybody here from 270 Clarendon?
Yes, I'm Steve Langer, and Margaret Hollowell is here with me.
All right, I'll just give a little recap for everyone.
Okay.
So, as Commissioner Dimitriadis had indicated, this was a violation where the existing tree that you see here, crabapple tree, was removed without the Commission's approval, and a temporary scaffolding put up to do repair work at the rear of the building. The scaffolding has been removed. In July, the representative of the property owner had indicated that they were looking into planting a dogwood tree to replace it and would be reporting back this month on the details of the tree. Since that time, oops, let me get to the next. It appears that the crabapple tree is growing back on its own. So the stump wasn't removed, and it, to me, is looking, amazing that it's grown this much in just a couple of months. So with that, Steve and Margaret, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, we're not at the property this month, so our daughters have been there and they've taken these photographs for us. I'm not an expert on trees. As I mentioned in my note to you, Joe, Margaret's been involved with, she's a gardener all of her adult life and has been involved in gardening clubs. So she's the closest thing I've got to an expert on this. But the concept here, I suppose, first of all, this is a small area. It's, I can't, were I in Boston, I would have pasted off for you, but it's the size of a relatively small living room. Everything that you see that is green in this picture is the tree. There's no other plants in the area. It's just the crabapple tree that has decided that, Mother Nature had other plans for it. So I'm at the risk of rattling on here. Let me ask Margaret to say a word or two about a potential plan for encouraging this tree.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but from what I can see, I need to get in there and just cut away as many of the suckers that I can and find the strongest one and let that do its thing. I think that we're gonna have, I think that we're gonna have another tree via this tree.
Okay, and I would just say, my staff recommendation is, dismissing the violation, provided that the crabapple tree remains in place. So, if for some reason this does die and it has to be removed, then that again would require our prior
Right.
review and approval.
Understood.
I don't think it's gonna die.
No, in fact, this looks healthier than the tree that was cut down. That was an older tree. It had some dying limbs, but as you can see, I'm stunned how green and fresh this looks.
Yeah, with no care, no water, no nothing.
Yeah, the roots are well established, and as you can see in this picture, so this is a sub-basement level. A couple of years ago, we took out a lot of the soil and put in the pea stone that's off to the right-hand side, and then the rest is brick. I always get concerned when I hear that there's going to be thunderstorms in Boston, because this will still flood up a bit. But the idea here with the pea stone was to take out soil, put in pea stone that would perk more quickly. It's not a terribly conducive area for a tree, I suppose, other than a well-established crab tree that's got a root system that refuses to die.
All right, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, so move to public comment, Joe.
Sure, I'll bring up the script.
Okay, members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use a platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise outside of the commission's purview. And I believe Lori Thomas has her hand raised.
Yep. Lori, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, so this is Lori Thomas, and I'm wearing 2 hats, even though you can't see me. I am going to be the co-chair of the NAB Architecture Committee, and neither Serge nor Sue can come this evening, so I'm going to at least speak up for them on this project, and then I will give my opinion on this for the tree committee. The NAB
We'll give you
Architecture.
4 minutes then, since you're
Oh
wearing
my
2 hats,
God!
okay?
I'm,
All right.
I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can, and I have a feeling you might have some questions. So NAB would strongly support replacing this the stump with another flowering tree to provide canopy to the neighborhood. They don't expect that this is going to amount to much. So they just asked me to say that they would really like to proceed as planned with, since it was an inappropriately removed tree, to follow the normal procedure and replace it with another. Now, speaking for the tree committee of the Garden Club, I heard from both Margaret Picorni and from Norm Healy. And so Steve and Margaret is our tree expert for the Garden Club and the Commonwealth Avenue Mall. And she says, sprouts from an existing stump will never amount to much. They are weak-wooded as they get larger and would need constant attention and a lot of expense to prune and shape it to try to get a new main strong leader to develop so that it might someday look like a tree again. And she thinks, in her opinion, that this is an all-around bad idea. I also spoke with Norm Healy, who is the consulting arborist for the Public Garden and the Commonwealth Avenue Mall and the Garden Club's tree committee. Norm, in addition to being an arborist, is a tree scientist. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. He thinks this is a very exciting science project. What he pointed out to me is that what you're seeing is very vigorous rootstock. Crab apples don't grow from a root. They are grafted onto other tree stock. So we do not know what's growing down there. It could be an apple tree. It could be another type of crab tree. It could be a completely different kind of tree. It could be just about anything. It could be dwarf stock. This could be, these suckers that you're seeing could be giant trees. It's not surprising that they are so vigorous because that's what rootstock is, but you do not necessarily get a quality tree from them. That's why you graft something more interesting onto them, like a crab apple. So he's very curious to see what this will develop into. And yes, Margaret, you're right. It's going to take some time to shape it, to find the strongest leader and to cultivate it. but you've got a very rigorous system there. You just don't know what you're going to get. Norm did say that it would probably not fruit or flower because it's probably not a quality crabapple, but you never know. He said you could get real apples from this tree because apple tree stock is often used as root stock, in which case you're going to have apple trees in an alley, which is a rodent problem. So he suggested that if you're going to keep this project going, that you use a potassium fertilizer, not nitrogen, and water it to protect it through the cold weather. Because while it's vigorous, it's also very young and fragile, so it may not survive our cold winters. So that's what I have to tell you. It's a very mixed bag. I don't have a personal recommendation myself, since I've heard every opinion from my 3 experts.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
I'm not seeing any other comments coming in. Tom, did you want to say?
I just wanted to ask whether Lori had any idea of how long it would take to know whether this tree is going to come back. In other words, is it going to be a year? Is it going to be 5 years? Or is it just one doesn't really know? Because if the commission, knew that it was going to come back in a year or so, and we saw that it wasn't, then this could be revisited at that time by being brought back to the commission. I just don't know enough about trees to have any idea whether there's a way to tell soon.
Tom, I tried to ask Norm that. What he said was that since it's very vigorous rootstock, as you can see how it's flourishing, he thought what would grow fast. And, if it's going to develop into a real tree, we would know pretty soon, like in the next couple of years.
Because you have homeowners here who are interested in seeing a tree come back. So, it doesn't sound like it's going to be neglected. So maybe it has a chance.
It will take pruning and more care than you might expect, even as vigorous as it is.
Those of you who were involved with us 2 months ago at the meeting know that 270 Clarendon works with Ellen Abdow, and she's the closest thing that I have to a true expert in this area. She has seen this image, but she has not. She's visited a couple of times initially to look at the stump, and she's interested in coming over and seeing this. I just have to get to Boston at a time when the 2 of us can meet.
Jeannie, I think that's it for public comment now.
Okay. Robert, did you want to make your
Yeah, I
Rob?
I agree that a crabapple tree in Back Bay is not ideal given the plethora of the rat population, but nonetheless, I hope it does grow back. So my motion is to concur with Joe. The motion to dismiss the violation provided the crabapple tree remains in place, and that if for some reason it doesn't flourish, to come back to the commission with a suitable replacement.
Okay, do I have a second?
That'll be Eugene, yeah. It's just 2.
Oh, it's just the only one here?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
he's not here.
I'm the second. All right.
All right, so Rob Reintraub
Yes.
and Jeannie Dimitriadis.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Steve and Margaret, thank you for attending our meeting, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on your tree. So keep us posted how it goes.
Thank you all for your input. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And that's our only
Violation, right?
Virginia. Yep. So if you want to adjourn the violations committee, we can take a 15-minute break until we have
Okay.
the review.
So I'll adjourn that, and then Joe, I may have to leave early tonight.
Okay. And I think Rob, you have to as well, right?
I have to leave at 6:30, so
Okay.
Okay, so do you have enough people or?
We'll see. I think I should. We have a new member starting
Okay.
from NAB, so I think I should have enough. I need 5.
All right, so if there's an issue, let's see.
Okay.
Okay,
We'll try to move things quickly.
all right.
All right.
Thanks.
Shall we
right.
stay online?
If you want to, I'm going to just pause the recording, and then
yeah.
We'll have some time to regroup at 5 o'clock.
Great.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thanks.
Right.
All right, Kathy, whenever you're ready.
I am ready. I'm calling this Back Bay Architectural Commission public hearing to order at 5:00 p.m. We got in the way there. 5:00 p.m. on August 13th, 2025. You may participate in this hearing by going to our Zoom meeting link in our agenda posted online at https://www.boston.gov public-notices 163-823-06 or by calling 301-715-8592 and entering ID number 963-2732-5259. You may also submit written comments or questions to backbayac@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this hearing online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Back Bay Architectural Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview.
Great, thank you. So I will just do a roll call of the commissioners who are present. We have Kathy Connor, Gina
Here.
Dimitriadis, David Sampson, Rob Weintraub, Tom High, and I'm happy to announce Lisa Tharp has joined us. And welcome, Lisa. Lisa is our new member from the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay. So welcome.
Wonderful. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Great. And we're going to change up our agenda a little bit tonight because we have 2 meetings that we need to approve. And because we have a couple of commissioners that are leaving early, we're going to ratify the public hearing meetings first, and then we're going to move into the administrative review before we start our actual application review. So do we have a motion to approve the public hearing minutes for June 11th and July 9th?
Motion to approve?
Second,
Okay. Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Tom High,
yes.
and Lisa Tharp.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And if we could do the administrative now, Kathy, that would be great.
That's terrific. So do we have a motion to approve the administrative review?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, and Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes.
and Lisa Tharp.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful. Then we'll move on to the applications.
So our first application is 25.1044BB, 273 Newbury Street. And the proposed work is at front patio area, install a vintage truck from July 1st, 2025 to October 31st, 2025 to display merchandise. And is the applicant here? I don't see, Daniel, are you here? I didn't see you enter. If you're here, could you raise your hand? Because I don't see you on the call. Okay, I'm not seeing him, so maybe we move to the,
Move on? Yeah.
yep, if we have is Pamela Steele here for 66 Marlborough Street for the Little Free Library, or someone from that application. I don't see her name here either, which is strange.
Huh.
All the commissioners were early except for the,
Yeah.
the
It's-
applicants.
What's wrong with this picture, right?
Yes.
So I think I saw Nick Winton. Are you here? We could move to 11 Marlborough Street.
Hi, I'm here.
Ah,
Oh,
great.
beautiful.
Okay.
Thank
Let
you.
me just get to your presentation, unless, Nick, did you want to share your own screen?
I would if I can.
Sure. Okay. I'll let you do that. Let me just first, oops, I went a little too far.
And Nick, Joe's going to read the staff comments first, and then the floor is going to be yours.
Okay, I'll wait to share until Joe,
Yep.
you're done with that, if that's all right.
Okay, staff notes that 11 Marlborough Street is a 5-story stone row house constructed in 1863 and designed by Charles Kirby. The applicant is proposing to revise the plans approved by the commission in July 2023. Specifically, this includes changing the location of the access hatch, expanding the footprint of the deck, reducing the amount of mechanical units, and adding a privacy screen and eliminating skylights. Staff recommends approval with the provisos that the privacy screen be eliminated from the project and that the rear deck railing be adjusted to not be visible from the alley. And I'll just show you, I think I have, actually, I think I have the wrong. So you can just get a glimpse of the, if you look where the scaffolding is, if you look very carefully, you get a glimpse of the mock-up from the handrail when you're standing in the alley. And it's very, very hard to see. So I was hoping that since it's so minimally visible, that there could be some adjustment to make it not visible from the alley.
And
So that's my proviso in addition to eliminating the privacy screen. All right, so I'll stop sharing and you can share your screen.
Okay, thanks. So hi, everybody. I'm Nick Winton. I'm a principal and co-founder of AW Architects, and joined today from my office by Emily Whitbeck, who is the project architect on this project. We're also joined by Peter White from Zen Associates, who we're working with as well on the roof deck, and BSA Construction, Dave O'Malley from BSA Construction, who was, I think, the original applicant. And this is an amendment to that original application that BSA filed, and they're no longer the owner, but they are currently the general contractor for the project still. So that's why BSA is here as well. I know I only have 5 minutes. I'm going to move quickly. And if I'm moving too quickly, you can feel free to slow me down or ask me to repeat myself. But so as you know, it's 9 to 11 Marlborough. There are 2 buildings that we're joining into a single property, occupied instead of the prior application had 5 condominiums that were proposed for this project, and we're now down to 2. Same owner, but 2 separate properties. And today the amendments that we're looking at concern only the roof area, the roof deck. Everything below that is as previously approved. As Joe mentioned, in the previously approved plan, we had 7 air handlers, we had a roof access hatch, an elevator head house, a couple of skylights, and the I would say the customary black iron railings. So since then, with these changes, what we're moving towards, a new mechanical arrangement, which now includes only 4 heat pumps that are much smaller. So the reduction in size, a reduction in number. We've combined the roof access head house and the 2 skylights in the previous application into one object, which is a new skylight. It's a larger one single element that's again not within any view from a public way. And then we're maintaining the original elevator penthouse copper structure that was previously approved. And I'll just zip through these because this is just a further detail on what these are. So this is a typical mechanical, something you're all familiar with. a Mitsubishi heat pump. So the 4 of these reduced from 7. This is their location in the mock-up, and they're not visible from, this would be on the north side of the property along the alley, not visible. This is an example of the same skylight system that we're proposing. This is something that we did at 74 Chestnut in Beacon Hill. This is the same company, same design, slightly different size, but very, very similar. So it's a copper-clad surround with the sliding glass opening that allows access by stair from the roof to the main stair of this design. And then these are some existing images of the rooftop showing the west edge of the property, where our project abuts 13 Marlborough Street, and their trellis, the white trellis there is theirs. And our mock-up here, it's an image of our mock-up. We just detailed this image a little bit better to understand more clearly how that works. So our new roof deck elevation is slightly higher than the current rubber roof because of the slope, as you can imagine. We're showing a 42-inch high rail here with a 6-foot tall privacy screen. The reasons for that are, I think, self-explanatory. That there's an existing white trellis. There's quite a bit of mechanical equipment. There's even a water tank. So that this is the reason for our current proposal for the roof, the privacy screen along the west edge of the rooftop. These are the proposed materials. Pretty familiar materials: teak or mahogany, the black iron, and copper. These are our sectional studies, street sections looking up at from the public alley and from Marlborough Street. All of the elements of the design are behind the plane of the existing chimneys. Even the tiny bit of iron rail that is visible from the alley, and that's the reason I think that's visible is because the adjacent property, 7 Marlborough, is set back from our building, and so it creates a little bit more of a reveal there.
Can I just ask a couple of questions on that subject? Joe's picture actually didn't show as much as I saw when I took a look at the property. That corner is quite visible, and so I agree completely with Joe's recommendation that you pulled the deck back. You don't have to go back far to make it disappear, but it really should disappear. I couldn't see the mock-ups for the HVAC equipment because of the scaffolding, the staging. And I'm willing to believe your estimation that they're not visible, but I do think we want to have that confirmed by Joe once the scaffolding's down or whatever, somehow, so that we know that in fact they will not be visible, not only directly across but also obliquely from the alley.
I want to that's a fair point, and I want to ask a clarifying question about, so on this image here, is that the screenshot from, and Tom, I'm not sure if this was your photo, but from the NABB.
No, that's not mine.
Okay. This wasn't our photo. This is from someone else.
That's from their report.
Yeah. Now the railing is behind the plane of the chimneys.
Yeah.
And I know that is a mitigating factor in the placement, and at 42 inches. And so
we have regularly required that this amount of railing showing in the alley needs to be mitigated. Having it behind the rear face of the chimney, is it behind the rear face? I'm not sure it is, but having it behind
is.
the rear face of the chimney is a starting point, but the real issue is the visibility. And this is, I think, this is basically what I saw when I took a look also. And that's more than we like to see.
I'll just say,
Yeah, I think-
if you can go back, it's that wooden, see that wooden, no.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
That wooden, you see like at a right angle, that's what we're talking about
Yeah.
for the mock-up, just to be clear. If you could just put your cursor around it. Yes,
Right here.
yeah, that's it.
What's it gonna take to hide that or bring it out, bring it back? 3 feet, 5 feet?
No.
I don't know. We'd have to test, something we would want to test. It could be a couple of feet. I think that we can do that. I don't think this is at all a significant issue for us. I think that we can make that work. But I just want to be clear about what the limitations are. But we can, I think that we have some distance. Let me just go back a couple of slides here, and I'll show you how I think that we can handle this without. So right here, the corner that you're seeing in that image is this right here. And I think that we might be able to, if we were to do this, for instance,
right,
and eliminate this,
that
I
would
think it
handle
would go away. I'm fairly certain of that, but one of the reasons we're hoping to keep this is that our budding neighbor at 7 Marlborough had asked the question about being able to access our roof deck in an emergency, in case there was a fire or some reason to be able to egress this way, and vice versa, potentially our owners to go the other way in similar situation, and that this moment right here at the turn of the rail would be an opportunity to do that. I realize that's not a requirement, and I think we could still, even in this situation of creating this kind of inset corner right here, we might be able to get the same thing done for both parties.
Yeah.
I think that's a good solution.
Yeah.
As far as the so I guess for today, I mean, one of the things that we have two concerns, I guess, and I know you obviously have concern about the solid wall, which we want to discuss and hear your comments and address with you. But the other thing is the consolidation of the head house and skylights into this single element. Plus this is an existing piece that's already been approved, and we're not suggesting any change to that. I think for us to go forward, we want to make sure that that those things are also discussed and approved, so that we can move forward with our construction, understanding that this piece may need further review or scrutiny or comment.
Pardon me, Nick, I have a question to ask you. When you say the solid wall, do you mean the privacy screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which I have to tell you, I am absolutely in agreement with Joe's recommendation on that. We have never approved a privacy screen of that magnitude, and the guidelines are very clear. If we do it here, we'll need to do it every place. I don't have any problem with the proposed head house that you're talking about, and access hatch. Rob, have you seen that used elsewhere? Has
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's really nice.
yeah, it looks good.
So the only two issues that we're talking about is moving back the railing and the privacy screen to kind of remedy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Everything else, great. Just want to make sure we're all aligned.
I think,
Great.
well, I think the visibility of the mechanical equipment.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely.
Ah, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
well,
Joe.
I
Well,
would be
yeah.
prepared to make a motion on those issues.
The mechanical can be seen. Those are, I just said at the beginning of this presentation, we can't see those at all.
Because the
I-
scaffolding's in the way.
Yeah, I
No,
think I think
you
that's,
can't see them. Well,
we don't know. We need
Yeah.
Joe
Ah.
to confirm that.
Okay.
I mean,
So
from our
Tom, you said at the
observations,
beginning,
Yeah.
send that to staff once the
Yeah.
scaffolding is down. All right, that's good.
Great.
All right, so Nick, if you could stop. Oh, if there's any more questions. go
Great.
ahead.
Yeah,
And Tom,
no,
you
I
said
just-
you're, okay,
sorry, no, this is a administrative technical question. The other members of my team are unable to unmute themselves.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Sure. Who are they? And I can give them permission.
Emily Whitbeck and Peter White
Okay.
and Dave O'Malley also.
Emily is a co-host. Now, Peter is a co-host. Now, and you said Dave O'Malley.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, so they are all co-hosts and they can unmute themselves and run their videos.
So, one just on the subject of the privacy wall. So one of the things that we're most concerned about is the screening of the stuff, I'll call it, from 13 Marlborough. One of which is the trellis and miscellaneous equipment, including some pretty large rooftop mechanicals. So that's kind of what's driving this. I recognize that this is maybe a bit of a non-starter for you, but that's where we're coming from here. We're really trying to create a greater sense of privacy, but also kind of clean up this view, if you will. And I'm just wondering, is it the height, or I mean, are we allowed on some level to screen and exist another screen that is at that elevation at 6 feet?
no, that trellis was never approved, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what people usually do, I think, is to use planters that are rail high. The guidelines specify that these things cannot be any higher than the railing. And planters give you the opportunity of adding some greenery. So that's really, and also they perform a nice sound barrier. So you might want to consider that as an alternative.
Okay.
Great suggestion.
any other comments, commissioners or part of Nick's team?
Yeah, this is Peter White. I have one question regarding this topic is, can we bring the wood fence down to the screen panel down to the height of the railing? So 42 inches.
Joe, how does that fit with the guidelines?
No, it's a no peg screen. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's been dealt with planters. And Peter, that, you know, we've discussed this at other projects.
Thought we'd ask for the client.
I will commend your use of the newer glass hatch. We've had that on projects and it's a beautiful solution. Low profile.
Great. Any other comments regarding the privacy screen from any of the commissioners or team? Okay, and Tom, you said you were prepared to make a motion?
Yes.
So why don't we go to public comment?
Okay, Nick, if you could stop sharing your screen, I will share my screen, and
Sure.
we have a little, something I have to get to.
All yours.
All right, thank you. Okay, Kathy. that's our-
All right, thank you, Joe. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which includes landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. And Serge, I see you have your hand raised.
Hey, Serge, you should be unmute yourself.
Yes, I was. Good evening, commissioners and Mr. Cornish. Serge Savard, co-chair of the Architecture Committee for the Neighborhood Association of the Back Bay. We had a chance to meet with the applicant and see this proposal. We think it's a very nice deck in general, especially the hatch. But we do concur with the commission and with the commission staff that the railing should be pulled back. And also regarding the opaque wall, I would like to remind the commission that back in January 2025, if I remember well, the commission cited 358 Marlborough because they had installed a deck where the railing was opaque, and that was cited as a violation. And the commission required that this be replaced by a traditional railing. So I think in the case, I would really suggest the commission to use the language of the guidelines that says that permanent opaque elevations such as screening and planters should be used and not exceed the railing height in all cases.
Hey,
Thank you, Serge. Do you see anyone else, Joe?
No, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, and we don't have anything as far as in writing either,
No.
correct?
Nope.
Okay, then why don't we go back to Tom? And Tom,
Okay.
why don't you propose your motion?
Before I make the motion, could I ask one other question, which is a little off this topic? But when I visited the site, I noticed that the entire front portico had been removed and is presumably being remanufactured. And I just wanted to be sure, now that there are new owners, that you are working with Joe. There's a very specific proviso relating to the portico and the balustrade and how it is to look. And I'm sure you are, but I just wanted to double check that.
Yes, we are. Appreciate the question. We are. It is a restoration, and it's been deconstructed because it had decayed.
Sure.
Significantly. So we're rebuilding the structure and replacing the. Some of you may recall the Corinthian columns had been modified by previous owners in a very strange way.
Yes.
We're rebuilding those in their original, to their original design.
Perfect.
The whole portico is.
That's great. Thank you. Okay. Motion is that the project be approved with the following provisos: that the deck will be reconfigured so that the railing is not visible from the alley, to be confirmed by staff; that the final location of the mechanical equipment is to be approved by staff to ensure that it is not visible from the alley; and that the privacy screen is denied and any alternative installations of planters shall not exceed the deck railing height and shall not be visible from the public way, to be approved by staff.
Second?
Okay, great. And I do want to note that Commissioner Franklin Ross and Commissioner Andy Champatera did join us at the very beginning of this agenda item. So Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Tom Hyde,
Yes.
Lisa Tharp,
Yes.
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
and Andy Champatera.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So, Kathy, we will go back. I do, to 66 Marlborough Street. We do have a representative here for the Little Free Library.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joe.
Hi, thank you, Joe, for unmuting me. I appreciate
Sure.
it. Was very, very frustrating, but I appreciate the time for you
Well,
and the
yeah, I
folks
was
here.
expecting Pamela Steele. So, okay, but we're happy you're here.
Yes.
I'll read my my staff comments. So just get to those.
Thank you.
Okay. Staff notes that 66 Marlborough Street is First Church Boston, built in 1867 to 1868 and designed by Ware and Van Brunt. A fire in 1968 destroyed the church with the exception of the porch and tower, which remain today. The current church building was designed by Paul Rudolph and completed in 1972. At the October 9th, 2024 hearing, the commission approved the installation of a Little Free Library at the Newman School at 247 Marlborough Street with the following provisos. The library is a freestanding structure not attached to any portion of the building. There will be no writing, logos, or symbols on the structure other than Little Free Library plaque. It will be removed when no longer used for this purpose or when the ownership or occupancy of the building changes. The final design, including color and material, is managed to staff for approval. Staff recommends approval with those provisos, along with recommending a change in the location. And I'll just show you some photos that I took today. So if I'm right, the proposed location is in this area here along Marlborough Street, and I'm thinking a better location would be here where it looks like you have a existing sculpture, just because I think it would be a distraction to have something here that would just obstruct this wonderful view of the Paul Rudolph building in the amphitheater area.
Actually, the place that we're
Excuse me,
doing.
excuse me. I'll let you speak after
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. All right, hold your horses. So here's another view of looking on Marlborough Street to the east. You know, we have this area here. I think that would be dangerous with the proposed parking area. So I think this is what was sent in with the application. And this is what was being proposed for the location. So Janine, I'll turn it over to you now.
Sure. So it's a planter. This particular, our first thought was that it would be in this planter. So if you go back to the picture that you took, this one, it's the planter to the right there. Nope. Back. Keep going. I mean, go back like 4, I guess. And next one. Thanks for, and one more. Right. So that planter on the right is
This
where we're, no, right in front of the
Front right.
there's two shrubby things in the front foreground. It's the one to the right. That's a planter. That was where we have suggested that we place it. Right. It's a planter, and it would could be anchored very easily in that. It doesn't really obstruct, but to be honest, if you really feel like it's better in that corner area that you're recommending, I don't have any objection to that. NAB had recommended something, as you said, by the driveway. I just think it's too, it's a very active driveway, and I don't think that's a good solution. So I'm ready to, I mean, we like it in that post only because it's, I mean, in that planter, just because it's easy to reach. And, you know, for people, you know, standing on the other side of that sort of striated concrete to be able to reach in and get it. So it's for ease of use, and it is far enough over, and it would not be up high. The actual Little Free Library is a little less than 2 feet high and 2 feet wide. It's less than that. It's like 18 feet, 22 high and about, you know, 18, 19 wide. And then it's on a post that would be about 3 or 4 feet. We have to sort of see where the right length is, or the right height it is for it. But it would fit either in that planter with that box on top of it, probably going up to about 4.5 feet. in total, 4.5 to 5 feet, depends, get a look when you're in this situation. Or we could move it over, as you're suggesting, to that corner. It's possible to do that. Where that white structure is, it's part of that triennial, art thing that's going on. They're using us as a place for some of their art. It's temporary. It'll be gone by the end of, I think, October, if not sooner. So that is a place where we could try to do it. That has a depth because it's not all the way to the ground. It's like a box. So it's down there's about 3.5 to 4 feet there on the corner.
That would work well. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't have any objection to that. That's a fine place for it. If you don't want anything to occlude the look of the amphitheater, we can work with that for sure.
Great.
And then you had a question about the colors. We had provided a palette. The goal was to when you get the little free library, it doesn't have any color on it. But we wanted to use the Rudolph red, which is Paul Rudolph has his own red. That's in our sanctuary. It's in our in our lobby. It's very much a color that's associated with our brand, with our church. All the other hardware would be black. There is no logos or anything on it except for the little free library. Wouldn't have anything. We were hoping to paint the interior of the little free library a brighter color so that the books would stand out. So probably that top gold color, but we don't need to use any of the other colors there. It would be 100% the Rudolph red around and in back, and then black hardware. And then the interior would be, if we can, that yellow, or we could go to the Rudolph red in the interior.
Any questions, commissioners?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Let's go to public comment.
All right.
Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which includes landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. And Serge, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Serge Savard, NAB again. We did have some exchanges with Janine about this project, and we did have a little bit of clarification. And we think that the Rudolph red and the black for the post would probably be appropriate colors for the exterior. For the library and for the location. I think the alternate location that the staff of the commission has proposed, I think would be way more appropriate than the original proposal, and I think that could be a workable compromise to locate the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Any other hands raised?
No, I'm seeing none. And no other comments have come in.
All right, well, let's go back to the motion, Rob.
My motion is for approval with the following provisos: that the free library be moved to the location as previously discussed and as suggested by Joe Cornish on the corner, and that the free library be painted the Rudolph red, and the interior portion of the free library we can just discuss with staff, so I'll defer to staff regarding the interior painting.
Rob, excuse me, before we get to a second, could we also incorporate the provisos that Joe recommended, which were exactly the same as we approved for the Newman School? I think it's good to have that. We're going to have more of these, and the more we can standardize the motions, the better. I don't expect you to recite them all, but they're in Joe's.
I can read them if that's amenable. If you agree to that, Rob, to amend your motion.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. The library is a freestanding structure not attached to any portion of the building. There will be no writing, logos, or symbols on the structure other than the Little Free Library plaque. It will be removed when no longer used for the purpose or when the ownership or occupancy of the building changes. And as you've already said, the final design, including coloring materials, are remanded to staff for final approval.
Okay. Great.
I second.
Okay, thank you, David. And Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes.
Lisa Tharp,
Yes.
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
and Annie Chan Patera.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Janine.
Thank
Nice
you
to
so
have
much,
here.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see, and I sent a message to our 273 Newbury. If there is someone here to present for 273 Newbury, would you raise your hand? If not, we can move on. And I think my presentations may have gotten a little mixed up here. But Ron Payne, are you here and ready to?
Yes, I am. And Joe, if you don't mind running the presentation, I appreciate that.
Happy to.
Thank you.
All right, so I will just read my comments here. Okay, in the proposed workout roof, construct penthouse addition and front and rear decks and install mechanical equipment. It's application number 25.1047 BB, 339 Commonwealth Avenue. Staff notes that 339 Commonwealth Avenue is a 5-story brick row house designed by Charles Kirby. Staff recommends approval with provisos, finding that the proposed penthouse addition is not visible from Commonwealth Avenue Mall and minimally visible from the south side of Commonwealth Avenue. The applicant should explore adjusting the penthouse design to further reduce its visibility, and staff should confirm the proposed mechanical equipment is not visible from the alley. And I will say you've done a great job making this minimally visible. This is the 339 Commonwealth Avenue, and you just see from across the street a little bit of it. And it's so minimally visible, I thought that there should be some kind of small adjustment that can be made to make this not visible from across the street, but it's totally not visible from the alley. Okay, so I will move forward with your presentation. And you can just let me know when to move forward, Ron.
Okay, I am ready. My name is Ron Payne. I'm from Payne Collins Design, and I'm representing Trudy and Stuart Onan, who purchased this penthouse unit last year and are seeking to add a 365 square foot space, which is basically a writing room library with front and rear decks. So we did recess the penthouse addition quite a bit into the sloped roof. And after seeing the initial mock-up, we did reduce the height by another 3 inches so that the interior ceiling height is only 8'3". So it's really been minimized as much as absolutely possible. Furthermore, the front setback is 24 feet 5 inches, which we can get into when we look at the roof plan. But essentially what you're looking at in the front is a copper-clad penthouse addition with the French doors, which will have a copper frame and that oculus round circular window. There'll be a sort of cornice around that French door frame, and there'll be an upper cornice that's part of the front gutter. We are below the 65-foot maximum height, and the 2 skylets you see will be black framed, and they are sort of traditional shaped with a very, very minimal slope. So they're not visible. That's the extent of the work in the front. The next sheet, Joe, shows the rear, which is essentially the same design, except you see a bit more of the rear deck railing. Yeah, there you go. So the existing drawing on the left shows what is currently, there's already a roof deck on the roof, and it's quite higher than the proposed roof deck railing because we're sinking it down. The next sheet I think is really helpful, which shows the roof plan. So the top drawing shows the front and rear decks are, again, within the interface of the front and rear chimneys, and they are recessed so that the portion of the front railing is 1 foot. You will see 1'3" of it, 1'3" of it above the actual roof line. So you don't see that from the vantage point that we did the sightline diagrams from. So the addition itself is really quite small. It's just a staircase up, so it's sort of acting as a head house, and it's just one room with a fireplace and bookshelves on both sides. The rear deck is a bit deeper, but it's also recessed and within the interface of the chimneys. The 4 AC equipments you see on the roof, we did mock them up, Joe, and they are not at all visible. They're 5 feet inboard of the outer edge of the rear roof plane. The bottom drawing just shows the uppermost roof with the 2 skylights. Okay. The next sheet are the sort of section elevation. So the top drawing shows the recessed terraces and the addition. And the east and west parapet walls exist, and we're just going to clad those with copper. We're not raising them or lowering them. They exist. And the A drawing, the second row left-hand side, is from the inside of the deck looking out. So you see the copper curb, which is sort of at the roof level of the railing above. The B drawing is looking at it sort of straight on from the front terrace. That's the whole addition. Same with the rear. And that D drawing is what you would see looking out the back French doors towards the back alley. The other drawing is the east party wall. Same thing. We are within the chimneys and below the height. The next sheet, Joe, shows sort of the overall building section with the stairs leading up to that space. 339 is set in board from 341. So our building is shorter than the abutting building. You can see that in the background. The next sheet, Joe, shows the mock-up photos. So that top left photo, if you want to zoom in a little bit, shows, so the top left photo, that first yellow line is the height of the front railing. And you can see we're significantly back. It's about 7 feet back from the existing deck. That roof deck was never approved, and it's sort of not within the guidelines. So we are happy to be improving that situation. So backwards from that front railing, you can sort of see the addition, which, as I said, is 24 feet, almost 25 feet back. The next drawing, the next photograph too, sort of is a nice sort of shot of the front yellow line of the deck, the top of the deck railing, and then the addition. The third photo is just looking east. You see the deck railing, sort of the middle of the photo, inboard of the old deck railing, in behind the interface of that front chimney, and then the height of the penthouse addition. The next photo on 4 is in the back, looking west, and the equipment, the AC equipment is outside of that deck line. It's sort of that mess of metal. So the next row of photos of the mock-up shows, right, sort of up, you went too far. The other way. Yeah. There you go. So this is the sightline diagram, which was really an interesting exercise. So from the westbound curb of the mall, you see nothing. From the midpoint of the Commonwealth Mall, you see nothing. From the eastbound curb of the mall, you see I would say nothing. It's when you get to the opposite sidewalk of the eastbound sidewalk that you do see that sliver, which will just be the copper gutter. Okay, so the photographs on the bottom are showing what you see from the front and from the rear. You see nothing from the rear, as I'm sure you can attest to, Joe, and whoever else may have walked back there. The next sheet shows, right, that's the existing conditions of the roof deck and the head house, the hatch rather, and the photographs of what's there. These are just some construction details. The next sheet shows the proposed lantern and some of those construction details, and just a simple, the bottom left image is a very simple railing, which is the 4-inch spacing top rail, very sort of very simple. That'll be painted black iron. I'm happy to answer questions. That's essentially the presentation. So please let me know what I can answer.
If you were to get rid of the smidge that's showing from the far side of Commonwealth Avenue, how would you solve for that?
So that was the challenge. So the stair that goes up has a fixed starting point and a fixed ending point, the stair. So that's how we establish that front wall location. So there's really no way to move it back anymore. And we've lowered it, as I said, to the 8'3" ceiling height. I mean, I guess we could lower it another inch or two. I mean, it is a space that my client intends on sort of sitting at. So we could try to lower it another inch or two.
That seems reasonable. Thank you.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll say beautiful design.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, it's very nice.
Thank you, Tom.
Ron, nice presentation. 8'3", 8'1", if you lowered it, you would probably achieve your goal.
Yeah.
My only question is, and this is really for Joe, the Oculus window, the circle window, I haven't seen that before in Back Bay. Is that within the guidelines?
We've done them before at 480 Beacon and a few other projects. We have done them in the past.
Yeah. And Rob, I had the same question, and there actually are Oculus windows that were original at both 27 Commonwealth, and I think it's 13 Commonwealth. It is a feature that was used in these buildings, usually on the side of a mansard. But I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, there's nothing that says they're not appropriate. So
it's at the landing of the stair. So as you're going up the stair, sort of an interesting feature to see that view moment.
Yeah, it's 19 Commonwealth, which is has a tall mansard, and both sides of that mansard have Oculus windows on them, and the historic pictures show those. So it's something that the architects 100 years ago thought about.
Yeah, it's a nice contrast.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Let's go to public comment.
I'll make that bigger so you can see it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on the project's exterior architectural features, which includes landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. And Lori, I see you have your hand up.
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry. You already unmuted Serge.
Went.
I apologize.
Serge,
Okay.
why don't we
Serge, go for
and
it.
Lori can.
Okay. Wonderful.
All right. Again, thank you, commissioners. I think I will also echo probably some of your comments that this project is really beautifully presented and designed here. We did discuss the doors and the number of doors and the width of the doors, and we came to the conclusion that this is probably the most appropriate design that is proposed here. And especially, we found that the framing that is done over the door, which we spend a little bit of time reviewing in our committee, really is a beautiful, elegant addition to this penthouse that truly removes this Miami or this suburban look, and it fits perfectly in the context. So we think that this is very nicely done, and at the 8'1" height, it would be absolutely totally appropriate. We believe. Thank you.
All right. Lori, we can move to you, Lori Thomas.
Hi, everybody. I live at 348 Marlborough Street, and we have a head house on our roof dating from 1929 with an oculus window. So I think there's definitely a precedent for having them on these old head houses. I also wanted to say that if lowering the roof still, makes the penthouse visible, perhaps you could do something with color so that it blends with the line of the building, so that it just sort of blends in and disappears rather than contrasting with it. That would also help, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any others, Joe?
No, I'm not seeing anyone.
I didn't see any either. Okay. All right, great. Let's go back to the motion.
I move that the project be approved with the provisos that the applicant work with the staff to adjust the penthouse design to further reduce the visibility from Commonwealth Avenue, and that the final location of the mechanical equipment be approved by staff to ensure that it is not visible from the alley.
Second?
Okay. Enia and Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Virginia Dimitriadis,
Yes.
David Sampson,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Tom Hyde,
Yes.
Lisa Tharp,
Yes.
Franklin Ross. Oh, Franklin, you still here?
Yes.
Ah, good. Okay. And Andy Champatera.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Joe, I'm going to sign off.
Okay. Thank you, Genia.
Bye, Genia.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye now.
Have a nice rest of the summer.
Great.
I have
All
to
right.
sign off to have another meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thank you.
All right. Before we lose anyone else, let me just, I haven't heard back from 273 Newbury Street. This will be our last call for 273 Newbury Street. If there's someone here to present, please raise your hand.
I'm Rob Quigley. Is that the Church of the Covenant?
No, but we're going to be getting to you right now.
Okay.
Because
All right.
I don't see anyone else.
Because I've got to get Liz on board here too. If she thought this would be later today, but
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, because we're moving to your advisory review now.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I will just bring us there in our presentation. Oops. We did our administrator reviews. Okay, so we're going to be, oops. Sure what happened here. Oops. All right, hope you can see this image of the church. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oops. Now there's only
It's turned white.
yeah. Okay.
No doubt.
Right. So the advisory review that we're going to be discussing, this is for here 67 Newbury Street. It's the Church of the Covenant. They've come to us for a discussion on the banner installation at the church tower entrance. So this is an advisory review, which means we will not be taking a vote. This is really just for us to have a conversation and give feedback to the applicant about their proposed project. So staff notes that 67 Newbury Street is the Church of the Covenant, which was built in 1867 and designed by Richard Upjohn. The proposed project is installation of banners at the entry tower. And here are some, it was a beautiful morning to take photos. So you can see here is the church looking from Restoration Hardware, and you can see the existing banners flanking the side of the entry. Now, as far as I can tell, these were never reviewed or approved by the commission. Here is an image taken from the corner, and there are 3 existing banners here, and we'll see they're attached into mortar joints with eye hooks. And here is the east elevation of the church. Here's one of the existing banners. And here they are at the entrance on Newbury Street. And here you can get more detail. You can get a sense here of how they're connected to the building.
Yeah. Joe, can you clarify also the, there apparently is a zoning issue as well as an issue with our commission. Is that right?
I can really only talk to what our design guidelines say.
Yeah.
So, you know, I included those guidelines in the staff comments.
Right, yeah.
You know, under banners are defined as narrow strips of fabric anchored top and bottom at right angles to a building facade. And the guidelines say they are inappropriate. Temporary signs may be installed in windows only up for 60 days pending to submission and approval of permanent signage. Banners strung across the building or on railings are not appropriate. Sign materials, traditional materials such as wood, metal, and glass are preferred, as they are not only more compatible with the district's architectural fabric, but more durable than their lesser quality counterparts. Vinyl, plastic, or other synthetic materials are not acceptable. So that's, you know, this is kind of the reason why we're here, because I want to give the church some direction. I understand their position, but our design guidelines are pretty specific, and we've had other institutional properties on Newbury Street and in the district who have wanted to do these types of banners. I was trying to think of other options. Could there be a metal option maybe that's can slide in and out of a holder and that's changed on a regular basis? And I don't know, has Liz joined the hearing?
You would have had to let her in, I think, Joe.
Okay.
She
So I
did
got a
tell me she was
question.
trying to join.
Okay.
So question, the banners that you're showing now, have we approved those?
Not that I don't have any record of that.
No.
Okay.
But
are those still there? These pictures are
This is
taken.
today. Yep,
Yeah.
this was today. Here's Liz. Okay, Liz, I'm gonna make you co-host now.
So in answer to that question, too, maybe Liz and I should both introduce ourselves first.
Yeah, please do. Yes.
Yeah. So Liz and I'm Rob Quigley. I'm actually a just retired principal from an architectural firm across the street at 501 Boylston Street, where I was a principal for almost 50 years. And Liz Visa, she and I are both members of the building committee of this church. I think it's only come, to answer your question, it really has only come to our attention recently that there appears to be no previous approval of these banners. So that's why we sort of started initiating this entire thing.
Yeah, and I'm here and I've just gotten let into the audio and the video. So thank you for that, Joe, and thank you, Rob, for that. Yeah, we've been, these banners have been on the church since 2012 before either Rob or I were on the building committee. I understand that they did not get approved and we wanted to go through this process in the hopes that we could get approval for what we would like to be able to continue to put, which is something that is really an important part of our mission, social justice, and what we would like to be able to say in a way that integrates well with the historic fabric of this church, not at right angles, which I know are not allowed. But there's a proposed image that I think, Joe, you have there. And maybe it's moot because you don't want us to put anything on the building, but we would like to advocate for something that we think is important to say and we hope would be appropriate to add on this. Yeah, it's small, but you can see that there would be these two. We've had things at the ground level. They have been torn and vandalized. I think the message that we would like to convey does not, make sense to a lot of some people that don't like the thought of equal justice or climate justice or whatever it is that we're trying to convey in these banners. We've had something that was over the entrance that we didn't feel was architecturally appropriate. So this is the way we would like to be able to proceed. Certainly, we'd like to hear what your issues are and whether we could find a way to make this happen.
And I'll just say, our purview is outside of the content of what the signage says.
Right.
We're really looking at materials, dimensions,
Yep.
Attachments.
Yeah.
The architectural impact,
Yeah, of course, of course. And I would say that we understand that vinyl is not allowed. Some idea of a sunbrella or an umbrella material. We'd certainly want to hear from you about how we can make accommodations and work with your concerns and your guidelines to create conditions for being able to move forward.
Let me just understand, what you're proposing is not only retaining the two current banners, but also adding additional banners. Is that correct?
And I don't know, Joe, because I got on and couldn't see the images that you were showing, but a number of years ago, we had a rainbow banner across the entrance, a pride banner, and it was not well, applied and didn't work very well architecturally, frankly, so we took it off. And so what we would like to be able to do, and that banner would go away, we would like to be able to just have the two existing ones plus two pride banners. That would be a change from having something over the entrance. And we think a quieter version of that.
And Liz, would those be attached to these areas here, right? These flat
Yeah,
planes?
that's correct.
Yeah, I know that you had sent an image. I'm sorry, I thought I included it, but it was a banner that was kind of stretched across.
Yeah, that was not, it didn't work.
Yeah,
It
no,
was
that's
here.
But yeah, I mean, we're obviously trying to do something that's respectful of the architecture. Me especially as an architect. So.
And me as having worked for many years in historic preservation and trying to support and preserve buildings and landscapes that are historic.
Yeah, I know we had discussed, maybe doing a flagpole or a flag holder. I don't know if you thought any more about that option.
Joe, just question, are we, generally the guidelines do not allow banners, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And is there any carve out to allow, nonprofit institutions to do things differently than for-profit or commercial buildings in the guidelines?
That would be, it's always a possibility. I think, a question would be to make sure whatever is approved, well, again, we're not approving anything, but whatever direction they go in doesn't violate the signage code, which is outside of the district. So all signage has to be consistent with and meet the city's signage code. So that's something that, whatever our discussion moves in the direction of, they'd also have to be compliant with the signage code. But, there's, you could maybe even discuss the size and scale of this building. That's why I included these, and, it could be possible that if this design review application was coming for a vote, it could be possibly approved with a proviso that this is a unique large scale building and, you know, the size of the proposed banners or, you know, temporary signage, whatever it's going to be referred to as, would be appropriate in this one setting.
Because the difficulty really is, you know, when you, and we talk so much about this here, generally, you know, across, you know, different buildings, different addresses, is that when you do something for one person, how do you say no to somebody else?
Right.
And this is sort of, you don't, obviously, from an architectural perspective, banners on every single building. And what is the, you know, that's why I asked that question. So I guess I find it difficult to understand how you sort of make this carve out, but you know, I'm just one voice.
And help me understand, I think there are other churches that do have banners. I know down the street, Emmanuel has some banners. And you asked a question, Joe, that I just want to answer in terms of flagpoles. I think those will be, in some ways, we feel like they are more intrusive to the building. Oddly, I mean, I think having something, I know you talk about not having it on the building, as you know, we're very careful about doing things in the mortar and not on the stone. But I think it would be another, you know, intrusion to the facade of the building, having another vertical element that's separate from the building, and also something that's more easily vandalized.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I think that the flagpole isn't consistent with the architecture of this building. Some buildings a flagpole might work on, but this, I mean, this is such a special building. And what you've done with the vertical banners in the flanking the entryway, you know, if a banner is going to be acceptable, it seems to me that architecturally works. The two that are there, I think they're just two now. Adding to it, you start really deteriorating the value of the structure. So you've shaped these banners to fit with the vertical shape of the entrance. So I'm not, you know, I am concerned, as Franklin is, about precedent here. But just in terms of a reaction to it, those two, I don't react negatively to. I do react negatively to it when you start adding more and more and more to it, because then it looks more like a circus than the building that it's intended to be.
And let me ask a question about the sign on the corner. That's a metal post sign below. Just a question. And Joe, I don't know what your thoughts are. Is it possible that we could allow them to extend that up, make that bigger, and that would be the one place that, you know, would be, you know, it's not on the building, it's already there. Is it possible that maybe you give more space to that and let it be in that, you know, in that place on the corner? That's just a question. You know, thinking about how to, you know, provide a surface.
Yeah. I will just answer that in terms of history, and I don't have the image easily accessible. I could grab it, but we did have something similar to that with messages on it, and it was vandalized. I mean, it was vandalized.
And freestanding signs do require a zoning variance or conditional use variance. So probably to change this would have to go back to zoning.
Okay.
Joe, I have a question, but first I have to ask, as my rookie commissioner meeting, do I need to recuse myself given that our design studio overlooks this church?
Well, we're not voting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's fine. You know, we're giving feedback.
Okay. Is it possible to use a blade sign on the building, much like Gallery Naga does down the street?
But that would come out from the building, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Isn't that, Joe? I thought when you and Rob and I had the meeting a couple weeks ago, I thought that was what was not allowable, is to have signs that are at right angles to the building.
Well, that's the banner. So again, the definition of banner is defined as narrow strips of fabric anchored top and bottom at right angles to a building facade. So a blade sign would be suspended from a bracket. And that's a good a good idea. You know, it's an interesting suggestion, and maybe that would be something that you could switch a metal or wood sign, or maybe you have a metal sign that can be somehow, I don't know, interchanged or changed with whatever message you want to have on
You
it.
know, I think our goal was to be discreet about this, though, and not to be argumentative, but it seems to me flat against the wall is a little bit more discreet than perpendicular to the wall, but
And also a little less commercial.
yeah, a little less commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to be as quiet as we can. If the addition of additional signs, which I can hear your concerns about, makes this too cluttered, we will be. I can't speak for the whole church. We'll go back, and Rob and I will go back and talk to the building committee about that
Right.
and revise our thinking about what we'd like to move forward and propose.
Yeah, this image that you see here shows a third banner on the Berkeley Street side. That's definitely coming down. I mean, we were not proposing to keep that. It was just on the Newbury Street side that we were proposing to do something. And again, I think our own notion. I mean, we do want to be welcoming to people and do something to support the mission of the church, but we do want to be discreet about it. We don't want to be flamboyant, and we certainly don't want to, we really want to preserve the architecture and not fight with it either in terms of what we're doing.
Right, right.
And how often do you, I think, the one critical question is, how often do you see changing the messages on these signs? Because I think what we're struggling with is temporary versus permanent and materials.
So, yeah, and I think we have to kind of discuss it with the building committee. I don't see them changing often, but what are you suggesting that a temporary sign is a more appropriate sign, and changing them would be more appropriate than having a permanent sort of holistic message about social justice?
I would say probably more permanent.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how the commissioners think, but that's just.
It just seems like it would be less commercial, like you're having a new ad out there or something.
Hey, Joe, I personally think the banners does not do this church justice. It takes away, I think, from the beautiful structure here. And I have to agree with Franklin as well that to set a precedence here with the banners, to put more of them up. And I like the idea of enlarging that large square sign down on the ground. I think that's a fantastic idea where you can certainly get your message across. And then perhaps if you wanted, I was just thinking, if you wanted to hang a banner somewhere, could you do it inside the entryway? You've got two large entryways there that maybe you could hang something down. But to hang them on the building, it doesn't do it any justice to me. I would probably, I wouldn't go for it. It's just, I mean, that church has been, it was the first church in Boston, wasn't it?
No.
No. Okay.
Built in 1867. I agree with Dave Sampson. The addition of these banners takes away from the architectural beauty of this church. I mean, these buttresses are really spectacular. And you're diminishing the architectural beauty of this church by installing them where they are.
I was it Joe or someone that talked about the scale of the church? Maybe it was you, Tom, that talked about the scale of the church being massive. And relatively speaking, the banners are small. And it's not your purview to talk about the messages, but we live in a time that we felt it was so important to speak out, or at least to have a voice, at least to have a presence in the public square about things that we consider really concerning and vital to have a part of the conversation. And I am so respectful of this building. We love this building. It's a National Historic Landmark. I've worked for years in historic preservation, so I don't say this lightly. And I would certainly advocate for not having any more banners, but I think that the balance between honoring the building, which we spent quite a few $1 million for preserving, and as a small congregation, but we've worked really hard to raise money and preserve this building. We just got more CPA funding, which we're very excited about, to work on the roof, which we're doing as we speak. We think it's a a good balance between preserving this building, honoring this building, and having a voice.
If I can add something, you know, I'm thinking about what Rob and David said, and sometimes it's to simplify this solution. I always seem to, and I think when I review design in general, does it contribute to or diminish the value? And I think that they spoke to that, and I think that the architecture is so extraordinary. And I'm going to say something a little out there as a creative solution. What would you think, because you want to have a voice about the church and have people certainly see the church as a more than just a church, because you want to get a message out there? What if you were to project a message with light at nighttime on the church?
Yeah, I think that might not be consistent with the design guidelines.
Definitely not.
You know, I was curious. I figured
Yeah.
because it's temporary and it isn't doing anything to take away from the architecture. I said it was out there, but I figured why not put it out there?
That's the day to explore options. That's
Exactly right.
I think part of the problem is that there's no flat surface to project onto,
Yeah.
Which is one of the glories of the building.
Also, I guess the question too is, you know, when we approve signage, we approve signage. We go through, it's a permanent sign. We, you know, there are guidelines to that and has to be reviewed, et cetera. And we ask every single tenant to go through that process. So it's also unfairness. You know, we're not letting tenants change signage, you know, whenever they want to project a new message. Dangerous precedent.
Understood. And you know what?
I'm not talking about your comment, Kat.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying generally that that's also a challenge from, you know, our perspective of, you know,
Setting precedents is what you're trying to say here.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the guidelines do say for projected signage, moving or still images or graphics may not be projected onto buildings.
Yep.
Okay. Never mind. I missed that one. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oops.
It was a creative idea.
It's good to think out of the box, though. Yes.
Right.
Hey, I bet Serge has got a question.
Yeah, Kathy, did you want to open it up to some public comment?
Yeah, I think that we should.
Okay.
Serge.
Serge, you should be able to unmute yourself.
He's kind of smart.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. First, I want to first state that you know, the comments that we're going to do here is not related to the mission of the church. We really support and appreciate and all the work that the committee is doing here, but we have also some concern about the precedent, not only that it's done for the church, but also compared to basically even the Boston sign code, which is actually quoted in the guidelines. And the guideline says that the City of Boston sign code additionally provides for temporary display poster without independent structure support, which is the case, in connection with political campaign and with non-commercial civic, health, safety, or welfare campaign, that such poster should be removed within 30 days. So they are expected to be temporary and be there for a period of time and then be removed. And having something that is permanent, I think would be more a case that would be more closer to what we do with commercial signs, where they are approved, and we do allow, the commission does allow temporary sign while the permanent sign is being approved, but this needs to be fully reviewed by staff and by the commission before any sign, and signs are reviewed for color, for shape, for size, for everything. So I think in this case, it's a little bit, although I totally agree with the mission and the purpose, I think we need to find something different to fulfill this this task in this case. And for this building, although I think that it's probably the solution that they have is probably the minimal that can be done on this building at the current stage. But it's I think we need to find another structure that could be used also for other buildings that have similar messaging that could be done on other buildings. Because I'm also afraid that if we have banners for political or for social reasons, that we may see them pop up across the neighborhood as well.
Great, thank you for your comments.
And Joe, I have another question. I think of the Quinn, and we had a little bit of a discussion on this, and I know that there was the temporary displays that they were doing. Just as an example, is that some sort of something that could be explored in the sense of temporary direction with a message, maybe in a decorative way?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the problem, like you would see posters, but what we're hearing is they're getting vandalized and they're getting pulled out. So they're looking for something that's higher up on the building and that it's not easily accessible by people who can vandalize it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why we're having this discussion. I didn't have a good I couldn't come up with a good answer or direction for this. So it's a real it's a real puzzle, and it's something that hopefully we can put our heads together and come up with some pathway forward.
And maybe, Joe, the next step is to get together with you, put our heads together with you, and see what a reasonable next step is and proposal would be.
Yep, absolutely.
Can I ask an unrelated question as I'm looking at this picture? Is that ivy growing on the building?
Looks like it, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Boston ivy. Yeah.
You might want to have that removed. It's not masonry.
Yeah.
No, we.
All right.
Well, thank you
I
all.
think that was helpful. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks
it was an interesting discussion because it really makes you think about what we can do differently. And I certainly, if we come up with anything else, we'll certainly be open to Joe to make him aware of a solution as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much for all your comments.
Great, thank you. And I think with that, Kathy, 273 Newbury Street hasn't appeared, and we've moved on from them, so maybe they'll come back next month. But now I think we move to my staff updates.
Yes.
And again, we're happy to welcome Lisa Tharp. Lisa, was there anything you wanted to say? Or hopefully this won't be your first and last hearing.
I just wanted to say I'm very happy to be here and thank everyone for all of the work you've been doing in the community, and I'm happy to pitch in. Please let me know if there's anything I can do specifically to help.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
And I will just say for all of our districts, we're going to be rolling out an RSVP tracker and attendance tracker, just because we don't want to be in situations where we're concerned we're not going to have a quorum of commissioners. So I'll be sending out a spreadsheet that you can all add to, and we'll share it. And basically it'll map out all of our scheduled hearings for the year. And if you know you're going to be on vacation at one of those, just let us know as soon as possible, and let us know now so we can just plan ahead if we're thinking we're going to be in a situation where we may not have a quorum of commissioners. And that's all my comments.
All right. Well, shall we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Great.
Second.
I think we're all in agreement on that, right, Joe?
Yes. Okay.
Here.
Nice to see everybody. Have a great rest of August, and we'll see you. Oh my God, it's hard to believe, right? We'll see you in September.
September, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks so very much. Bye-bye.